All right. Happy Tuesday, guys. Hope your running training plan is going well over the last couple weeks. So this week on my office hours, I wanted to talk about something that I neglected for far too long. It's oftentimes not the most exciting thing to do in training and takes extra time beyond your actual training, and not the most exciting to do when you're tired. And one thing I learned is all the best athletes that I knew were really focusing on recovery. So recovery is really important because it's really where our training adaptations actually happen. The work is great and the work feels good and it feels hard and feels like it's productive, but none of that actually comes to fruition unless you don't focus on recovery, which allows it to absorb and allows you to improve. So just wanted to talk about a little bit about that today. So a reason why recovery is important, it's obviously a time where our muscles repair. We get tiny rips in our muscle when we do strength training or running. That's how adaptations occur. And also to help build new blood vessels. So your cardiovascular system will help improve over time when you're doing consistent running, which allows you to take on more oxygen, better blood flow, and can kind of go faster at kind of the same effort. And then another key part of recovery is it really allows you to maintain consistent as well as progressive training. So consistent being able to go week in, week out without being super tired or injured. And also, if you look at the training plans, they're very progressive week to week in terms of how long the intervals are, the intensity in them. So if you really focus on this recovery, it's going to allow you to be progressive in this training as well. Some signs you can look at if you think that maybe you aren't recovering that well. Some things to look out for if you find your motivation for running is a little bit low. Maybe you're extra sore and tight. If you're tired all the time, or if your performance is declining and you're not improving week over week. Like if you really feel it's starting to go downhill in paces that were maybe a little easier before starting to get harder. These are all signs that you really got to look at. And maybe reasons that you aren't recovering well enough and can't do the work. So, some of my keys that I like to think about when I'm looking at my recovery. Nutrition is a huge one. Your body relies so much on this fluid and food to really allow those adaptations to occur. So, protein for recovery is huge. I always try and get 20 to 40 grams of protein right after a workout. That can be as simple as a lot of times I find after hard workouts, maybe I'm not that hungry. Just something as simple as a protein shake just starts to expedite that recovery. And then maybe 30 to 60 minutes after, once that appetite comes back, you can get kind of a more wholesome meal in you. And then looking at your macros. So your macros are kind of made up of your carbs, fat, and protein. This is just kind of a general way to look at somebody who is decently actively fit, maybe not burning loads and loads of carbs. So you'd maybe look at doing 40% of your diet carbs, 30% fat, and 30% protein. If you can kind of stay in those ranges and you're not burning loads and loads of carbs like an endurance athlete, like an ultra endurance athlete, you should find that you're probably getting the macros you need in here. But big thing is to really make it consistent with whole foods and try and limit alcohol as much as possible because that definitely hinders a lot of the training adaptations that you'll get. One thing I like to use when I'm working on kind of finding my macro balance here is I use MyFitnessPal and I just track my nutrition and food and fluids that I'm taking in over a couple days through MyFitnessPal, and it kind of gives me what my macros are, which gives me a sense of just making sure I'm on the right track. I'm not somebody who likes to get overly crazy into looking at my diet stuff there, but every now and then it's good to check in and make sure that you're at least hitting the areas you need to. In terms of nutrition as well, hydration. So making sure that you're well hydrated. Our muscles are made up of so much water that making sure you're replenishing that water that you're losing in workouts, aiming for minimum, I like to say 10 cups a day, especially if you're a pretty active person. But I would say I'm personally on like busy activity days, I'm taking in more like 12 to 16 cups of water. So that's like almost 3 to 4 liters that I'm taking in. Sleep is a huge one. This is where our adaptations actually happen. So I really like to tell people to try and be as consistent when you sleep each week. So if you know that you go to bed at 9 and wake up at 5 every day, try and make it as consistent as possible. Then your body knows when it's going to be sleeping and can really be consistent on that. I like to say target somewhere 7 to 9 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Obviously, that's tough. We have families and things going on. But as many days in the week that you can get that consistent 7 to 9 hours, I can tell you it will go a long way to making sure your workouts are good and that you recover well. On heavy training days, obviously tougher on like a work or school day, but napping on heavy training days I've found it just makes a huge difference on your recovery. Especially if I did say a hard run that morning, if I can sneak even like a 30-minute nap in an afternoon on a weekend, I just find my legs come back so much faster after that. And just some tips in terms of your sleeping environment, trying to make sure you're in a cool, dark room. That will go a long way to making sure that your sleep quality is good as well. Because it's one thing to be in bed, but you need that sleep quality to be really good. I don't personally use it, but I know a lot of people use sleep trackers and a thing called a Whoop band that would be on your wrist there. Those aren't things you necessarily need to have, but little things to help if you're really looking to absorb that sleep recovery. Stress in life, both physical and mental, plays such a huge role in your recovery. So whether you're up on your feet all day in an active job or running around with the family after a run workout that morning, or just having mental stress in your life, maybe you have a very high demanding stress job, as much as you can find times to recuperate and limit that stress, I can tell you that will go a long way in allowing you to recover and absorb that training. If you think about like professional athletes, essentially what they do is, obviously it's not realistic for all of us, but there's a reason why they're hitting that training really hard, and the rest of the day they're probably feet up watching a movie, allowing those adaptations to occur. You don't see them going out for a 20K hike after that, or going into very mentally stimulating situations after. These pro athletes really have it dialed in and know that what they do outside of that workout time plays such a huge role in their recovery and how they can come back on their next training session. One thing I didn't do for a long time was stretching and mobility. I used to do a little bit pre-workout, maybe a little bit post-workout, but I've made a habit of even building 5 to 10 minutes a day of just going through some stretching and mobility exercises. I find they just really help loosen up the muscles and promote that blood flow, which I think really helps expedite that recovery and kind of prevents tightening up of the muscles, which you'll find if you're running a fair amount can be a main cause of injury when you start to lose that range of motion. If you have tight calves or tight hips, you can start to get issues all the way down that chain of your running. So stretching and mobility, just staying on top of that, something as simple as 5 to 10 minutes a day in some of those target areas that running really tightens up, can go a long way to helping you recover as well. That blood flow that you get from that stretching and mobility goes a long way as well. In terms of warm up, cool down, and easy days when you're actually running, can go a long way in your recovery as well. So looking at warm up and cool down for your run, you'll see every time I'm mentioning in runs, you should always be doing 5 to 10 minutes of warming up and cooling down. What this really does is help you safely move that blood flow. So when you're coming from a resting state, helping move that blood flow to those working muscles and get you prepared for the work to come. And then your cool down is doing the opposite. You've expended so much blood out to those working muscles. When you do that cool down, you start to bring that blood back into those recovery areas and bring your body back to homeostasis, or that like balanced position. And that will go a long way to starting your recovery process versus just going out, hammering around, walking in the door and getting on with your day. You have blood pooled in your legs or spots that didn't have a chance to remove the blood, and can actually be quite dangerous. And then easy days. I actually find a lot of times easy run days can really help you both build your aerobic base, but one thing I find they really do is help promote blood flow, which can really help your recovery. So something as easy as a super easy 20-minute run that you could have a full conversational pace with somebody, or just an easy walk, can really help that blood flow, which will help your recovery. So I know these things obviously take additional time in your training, and aren't the sexiest thing necessarily to be doing, recovery, but I can assure you, if you even start to dial in some of these 5 things that I mentioned, it will go a long way to helping you optimize your training and keep improving. So I hope you enjoyed this. Once again, every Tuesday, 10 a.m., I'll be here on these office hours. If you ever want to come and ask any specific questions, more than happy to help. Best of luck with your training, and we'll see you next week.